Welcome to the Startup Defense. My name is Callie Keene. Today I have Mollie Jahner. Now, Mollie, you are friends with our friends at Mission Cultivate, and I want to talk about that, what you're doing working with them, and I want to talk startups. But before we get into that, same question that I ask everybody, what are you passionate about right now?
Helping founders raise non-dilutive capital.
Ooh, I love that. Is one of the early topics that we really got into in the show was how passionate I guess I was about working in and with defense startups, because it's one of the only markets that you can go out and raise significant non-dilutive funding. SBIR most famously, but there's just pot after pot of innovation money. And I'd experienced this with Department of Energy working with clean tech startups. And I felt like, hey, the whole world's got to know that if you want to do hard things and you're really good at it, there's places to raise millions of dollars and not have to give up equity or delay giving up equity until
Mhm.
the exact right time so you get the best bang for your buck. So I really love that answer, but raising money is hard either way.
It
So
is.
what are you doing around getting cash in hand?
Yeah, so I've been in defense tech for about 20 years. I've raised, I guess, kind of closed over 800 million in grants and government contracts over the course of my career. And I think the number one thing I tell founders is it's just as hard to win grant contracts as it is to go after VC money. You need to be really prescriptive, you need to know what you're going after, and you need to write for the person who's reviewing it. Just like you wouldn't go blanketly pitch VCs, you need to understand the agency that you're going to ask money from and then go after it. And so, where I'm seeing success this year, it always changes with the administration, obviously, but this year, where I'm seeing success is there's a lot of energy tech, there's a lot of drone tech, there's a lot of anything to do with supply chain that's getting funded pretty quickly. And it doesn't necessarily even have to go through the Cyber Center program. It's things that are maybe sole source awards or they're, you know, appropriations or their state funds as well, which is really interesting. And I think a lot of startups don't think to look at the state level as well.
So I like the name of your company, Spring and Forge, because I'm going after non-dilutive funding in advanced manufacturing. So
Oh,
kind
yes.
of, the platform at which all of these things happen, automating engineering, automating manufacturing, scaling the productive capability to then produce all these, wild new pieces of technology that people have. And so like Spring and Forge, I'm like, this is for me, right? This is
Yes,
but
springs, exactly. And you're forging your way something.
yeah,
Definitely.
yeah,
I love it. Well, we actually just recently got purchased by our friends at Mission Cultivate. So my company was acquired by Mission Cultivate about 45 days ago. So Spring and Forge has been absorbed into the Mission Cultivate brand and the software that we're working on as a result as well, which matched founders to non-dilutive funding. So
and it's a good brand to be a
we like
part of.
the name
Yeah.
as well.
That goes on line with a lot of the past history we've gone on. And shout out to Mission Cultivate. Everybody's listening to this, you can just listen to past episode and learn more about Mission Cultivate. So that's very cool. That makes a lot of sense for the ecosystem that they're building, just like trying to bring smart people together and have something matriculate into a real product. But what are some of the biggest challenges that you see historically for someone going after non-dilutive funding, a grant?
Yeah, sure. I think so I'll take you as an example. If you're in advanced manufacturing, it's CapEx intensive, always. Anytime you're doing anything where you have to start and build and manufacture something, you're going to need money up front, and grant money can be slow. And so that's unfortunate. So that takes some time. And I tell founders to treat grant funding like you would your product roadmap. You should have 2 or 3 grants you're applying for every quarter. It's just something that you do. Routine. You add it, you set it and forget it, and you're applying for those grants because it should be a part of your product roadmap. But I would also say teaming is an underrated skill. So for companies like yours or companies in the energy tech space or contested logistics, who can you partner with to go after larger pots of money? Who already has past performance? Who already has a track record with the government? Maybe you're a newbie and you've never won, you've never applied, you don't even have a UEI number. That's okay. Go find somebody who does and make their offering better and sharper, and then go after more money together. And then that way we can kind of, I don't want to say take down the primes in a podcast for defense tech, but we can kind of do battle in a friendly way to kind of bring the best tech to bear across the DIB.
It makes sense.
Yeah.
I'm a huge proponent of the teaming and partnership approach. And maybe this is a little bit more brute force than other people would do. But when there's a big program, so I'll pick on Endless Forge,
Mhm.
something that we targeted, we'll apply as many times as possible to it. So we'll apply to something like that 4 or 5 times. Different ideas, different mixes of
Yes,
partner. Typically for a big project like that, we're picking like a blend, like a trade organization, a university, a prime, a differentiating piece of technology, which hopefully maybe that's us. Maybe we're just a convener. Funnily enough, that's been, even with where we would lose, it's been a great way to find people to partner with. And then we
yes.
end up doing business with them on an adjacent idea anyways. So,
Exactly, which is
yeah.
really the goal, how do we drive revenue ultimately? And because that's non-dilutive. So how do we find that way? I will say one quick thought on that. Had you ever gone to the actual program manager and just had an informational interview with them?
We'll try.
Yeah.
We'll try. And with bigger ones, they'll have the industry webinar, or they'll have an industry day. Um, I will say, if it's related to manufacturing, I have a really good ability to reach in and find somebody who can tell me, hey, we're looking for this spread of capabilities, and this is like what would be more helpful. And so, yeah, but for something that just comes across like an SBIR,
Yeah,
you
that's
know,
tricky.
it's a little harder. I would say it's easier to work in our tech space where somebody says, "Hey, this opportunity is coming up, and we'd like to see these kind of things." And we know that this is an acquisition pathway, and I'm not the decider. I'll give you my opinion on this. So,
Yeah, which is helpful because then you can kind of get inside the mind of the reviewer sometimes, which is ultimately the person that decides what gets picked and what doesn't.
uh, $800 million is a pretty good track record,
Thank
but
you.
in doing it over a long period of time, like, how have you seen that change kind of the trajectory? Because it's only, people point to like DIUX and say, hey, this is this pivotal moment that's changed. But like, honestly, that took a long time to change the market. And it's really only a handful of the past years where we really have VC and PE and this like private capital coming in to support. But how have you seen that shifted or like contributed to that outside capital, private capital interest in defense tech, or just GovCon in general?
That's a good question. So a lot of those are bigger contracts too. So for what it's worth, it's not, 800 different small companies winning, different things here and there. It's like large contracts as well that help contribute to it. Again, that's why I say the teaming, the prime and the subs, because it's so important. But I think looking at the landscape and thinking about it, I think VCs have gotten smarter about where the government is investing their money, and they have decided to kind of tag along. If somebody's cutting you a check for, $100 million, that's non-dilutive, then all of a sudden there's all kinds of follow-on capital offers that come through. Or I had a company the other day who went and presented at the Pentagon to Army Materials Command. And the general there was like, I love this. I want this. How do we get this? And now you take that statement and you go to VCs and you're like, there's a purchase order on the other end of this if you can fund me. And I think that founders are getting smarter to the game and how they can leverage non-dilutive or the prospect of non-dilutive in those negotiations.
Yeah, I think that's fair. If I dialed back the clock like 5 or 6 years, people would be more like, "Hey, have you ever heard of SBIRs or SBIRs? Like, you should do that." It's like, well, that's maybe a pathway to get some money, but that's not an acquisition pathway to fund. In our case, like hard tech startups, right? I'm like,
Right?
this company needs $10 million.
Not
There's no,
150,000. Yeah,
yeah,
exactly.
this is not any meaningful pathway. It is something to do, and it can build a relationship and pay for an employee, or you can do
It opens the
something. But
door. It
yeah,
opens
it
the
opens
door
the door.
to an
Yeah,
acquisition pathway, which the
yeah,
VCs can see. And they're like, okay, great. Now your foot's in the door. Cause like we talked about with past performance, once you win things, it's so much
yeah.
easier to keep winning.
Yeah. And
So
but now, like, yeah, VCs are smart. They're like, hey, have you looked at the PAE structure and looked at
yeah.
like, who should you talk to? Like, tell me a little bit about your acquisition pathway development. I'm like, oh, that's actually a meaningful question.
I
And
bet
if
some
the startup we're working with understands what an acquisition, like who are they specifically targeting versus like, yeah, we want to sell to the Army. I'm like, well, that could mean
Right.
anything. The
Well,
Army
I
buys
actually,
pencils.
someone just told me this today. It might have been today or yesterday that the PAEs are now actually asking, who's your VC or who's your PE or
Mhm.
who do you have backing you, so that they know that if they invest time into this project, it's funded, which I thought was interesting. And I don't think that's a question that has been asked in the past.
Yeah, right. Like R&E just put out the MIA framework, right?
Right.
MEIA, and then you see Army build the Fuse funding pipeline. So really, the conversations that we're having on the other side of this is helping DoW arrange what is this continuous path where they're working with private capital to move these ideas along, and I think a lot of that's it's aspirational, but it's great to see it on a roadmap and be aspirational. Like we can go from an X Tech $50,000 award to a $50 million OTA,
Yes.
and there's good entry points for private capital along the way. When you talk to a client, what do you look for in vision and pitch where you're like, this is something that this person really understands the problem and we can shape this and they're ready to like pursue that path of going for non-dilutive funding? Where is that like maturation of that idea?
Well, I think that's kind of a two-parter, but the first thing I would say is when I talk to a founder, if they've experienced that problem themselves and they're going to solve it. Those are the ones that they know the problem inside and out, they know the market inside and out, and now they're going to solve that thing. And they know they have product market fit because they needed it when they served or when they were doing XYZ thing. And so that's like a home run. Anytime I see a founder solving something that they dealt with, it's like, okay, this is awesome. We're gonna go and we're gonna win dollars. I would say the other part though that you mentioned about, okay, what does it look like to kind of get funding or move through the funnel? And it's tricky because founders, from maturation perspective, everyone focuses on TRL levels, and it's that's I one hand I'm like, hey, great, we need like a rubric for measuring things, but on the other hand, I'm like, but does it really mean anything? Like, again, it's so tough. Like, so everything is so different, especially in hard tech, which is where I've spent most of my career. And a lot of times hard tech is built on TRL knowledge from past designs. And so you kind of leapfrog, but just because you don't have the thing mature, ready to go, doesn't mean that it's not, couldn't be ready quickly. So that's kind of tricky. But typically I would say for maturation, it's like, okay, do you have your prototype? Are you ready to go win funding? Because that unlocks more dollars with purchase orders and things of that nature.
Yeah. I think this is fun. So episode that's coming out maybe in a couple of weeks, but I'll probably have a little opinion piece that's coming out on this is TRL is dead, right? And
Perfect. That's
so I think it's a made up thing, and it makes sense in like this,
Did we just become best friends? I think we did.
like in this like NASA kind of academic sense. Like we are literally going to work in a vacuum. It makes sense, but in the context of defense tech, I'm talking to friends at DIU, and they're like, well, a perfect fit for us might be something that's commercially viable that has a high TRL, but then translated into a defense application that has a low TRL because it's not traditionally used. And so maybe it's a TRL 6, but it's on the back of a TRL 9 commercial capability. And so when you look at this as like, well, problems are contextual. So if I have, drones are an example of this. I'm not the biggest fan of drones, but like it's a good example. There's millions and millions of drones, but then if you apply it to certain circumstances, it's effectively TRL 3 or below because no
Mhm.
one's ever used it like that. And so thinking of innovation from the lens of technology makes zero sense because innovation itself is a human terrain. It's like more of a people problem and an orchestration problem than it is a tech problem.
That's a great quote. Innovation is a human terrain. I like that.
Yeah, it's totally stolen.
Is it? Okay, that's
I'll,
fantastic.
I'll own it. No, but then you boil it down to like pragmatically. If I'm at TRL 3, I'm eligible for these types of funds, and if I'm TRL 6, I can get these kind of contracts. In my world, I just look at it like, do you have an idea that's ready for us to build something, or do
Yes.
you have a thing that's ready to demo? And if you have a thing that's ready to demo, we can get contracts to fix it up. That process of if it does it work, okay, well if it needs to look pretty, there's a whole separate set of funding mechanisms for scaling in improving the commercialization process, right?
Yes.
And yeah, so we just look at it in those buckets. Like, can I go show a buddy that this thing works? And if so, there's just different opportunities than if we're in paper writing land. So
Well, also agreed on drone fatigue. I feel like I've seen so many different drone founders over the course of the last even 6 months, and it's like it's tough to differentiate yourself in that field right now.
in drones, everything but the drone itself is interesting. The drone
Yeah.
itself is not interesting at all. When we write, grants or proposals, you have this fun mechanism. Like if I take the name Molly out and I replace it with Maxine, is this statement still true? With drones, it's a piece of technology that where if I'm like, I take the company name out and I put another company name in, I'm like, is this statement still true? So it's a 10-inch quad that does this thing. So
Yeah.
is 100 other products. And it's hard to differentiate in like a market where predominantly the products are made from open source or like off the shelf components, right? So
Dare we say swarmed? The industry swarmed. Is that too
swarm.
funny? I know.
Yeah, very good. What do you see as next for Spring and Forge?
Well, we were acquired by Mission
Yeah.
Cultivate. So I'm
Yeah.
super excited about that. So we were for a long time, been doing it for many, many years, helping defense tech companies go to market, go to scale, write for non-dilutive funding. We built software that Mission Cultivate liked, and they are like, we want to buy this and integrate it into our community because we're already having conversations between government and industry around funding and how we kind of level the playing field for those opportunities. So now let's bring that software and essentially kind of make it not make AI not a novelty anymore, but it's a utility. How does everyone have access to it? How does everyone have the ability to match and find and write for grants as somebody with a budget of $150,000 would? So that's what I'm excited about is how do we make it equal access to some of these opportunities so that we can get the best tech in the hands of the warfighter, truly, because that's what matters. So
Yeah, I love that because there's, to your earlier point, there's people that get out of the service. They know everything about a specific mission. They
yes,
know all of the tools that specific unit or program uses right now. Maybe not across the entire market, but they know what is used right now. They know how it's used. They know the deficits, the benefits of it. They're not going to have millions of dollars to just tap and spin up a startup, but out of the archetypes, we look for what's on the team. That's one of the core archetypes that we look at, like for our clients or for our partners, is like, do you actually have somebody on the team that knows what they're talking about? They literally were that person.
yes,
And we look for that. We look for somebody who's intentionally learned business. And then we learn for somebody who's a builder, like somebody
yeah,
can actually make the thing. Very rarely that's all the same person, but it might be two people or three people, right? And the democratization of going after that funding, because a medium-sized company, I sit on these calls and
yeah,
somebody goes through the Shipley process and they want to submit to a contract. There'll be 20 people on the call. I'm like, I've been doing this for 30 years. I'm like, I don't really know what all these people are doing, and I don't understand the process, and I've been through it 100 times.
yeah.
And I just think of like our startup clients, like you're brand new, but you know everything about how to solve this problem. You might have somebody super smart who can build it on your team, but then to like learn this like second, third language of
Exactly right. It's like another language of like figuring out how to find funding in the government between the agencies and the different patches and how do I do this and the mechanisms and how do I spend it and once I get it, it's outrageous because we're just talking about getting funding, let alone capture management, which is a whole nother
whole nother thing. Yeah, yeah,
piece.
yeah. 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 Like where's the best building in Arlington to house your BD people, right?
Pretty much, yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, paper mills, right? We're hopeful that they're dead, but are they? I don't know. I mean, I think it's the nature of that business to kind of innovate and find ways in. But I know with some of the reauthorization, they tried to scope it so that you couldn't just submit endless proposals. But I don't know. I've been around long enough, much probably like you, where I've seen them kind of like zombies. They revive, and you're like, there they are.
Yeah. I mean, it is unfortunate, and some people shared the stats on this, and they are quite alarming. So
Are they?
it's quite astonishing. But that being said, like of people that we work with, most of them have won significant funding. So somewhere between that 150 and several like $1 million in non-dilutive funding to get their product out the door. So
It's fantastic.
yeah, like
I'm glad you're out there helping people because they need it.
Sibber Mills can't win contracts, right? So
Yeah.
that's the advantage that you have. But Molly, I really appreciate you taking the time to
Thank
be on the
you.
show. This
Yeah.
was super fun. Where's the best place people can follow you and learn more about what you're
Yeah.
doing?
LinkedIn. Just give me a
Okay,
follow, Mollie Jahner on LinkedIn, or you can shoot me an email at molly@missioncultivate.com.
perfect. Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you.
My name is Callie Keen, and this has been the Startup Defense.